All right, man, peace. So, brothers, this is going to be another entry into the Are Women Equal to Men series, and it will be featuring Mr. Marshawn Lynch and the Michelin man-bodied woman who antagonized him at his own free football camp. And, brothers, I just want you to focus on that. We have to always make sure that we contextualize all of these stories because it truly sheds more light on the condition of the battle. What I mean by the condition of the battle is what we tolerate every day from people who we have no business tolerating things from. And that's why it's always very dangerous to give people things for free, because the average person does not respect what you give them. They only respect what they've bought or what they've earned. So Marshawn Lynch is also culpable in this situation that occurred because he allowed that mother to actually consider or believe that she's on his level when it comes to how a young boy should be coached on the football field just by having a free football camp. And as we all know, Marshawn Lynch loves to, quote unquote, give back to his community. And that's a very good thing. But you also have to understand that so many people out here are entitled. So they truly believe that they're well within their right to become cantankerous when things don't go their way, even if they're in an environment where they're the recipient of something free. And it's how the liberal / Luciferian woman has been mentally prepped for the last 40 plus years, that she deserves free shit. And in the process of her receiving that free shit, if she wants to become antagonistic, if she wants to become cantankerous, if she wants to become belligerent or bellicose, it's well within her right. Fortunately for Marshawn Lynch, he had the discernment to understand that he should confront that woman right away in front of cameras so that he could create the energy around why he did what he did and help people understand why he did what he did, in contrast to the energy that's being emitted by the quote-unquote single mother. And as we're going to see in the film clip, she's very confused, very bemused, as she's suffering from an issue that so many modern liberal females suffer from today, which is an unbelievable amount of narcissism, i.e. self-worship, and the belief that man is equal to woman. One is not better than the other, and most of you cats know that already. Anyone with sense grasp that. Women with sense grasp that they're not equal to men, just like men are not equal to them. There are things that the woman can do that men cannot do and are not meant to be doing. The woman has the energy of a nurturer. The man has the energy of an administrator. The job of the man is to establish order. The job of the woman is to promote the energy of nurturing or of love and support. The two come together in harmony, or at least supposed to be in harmony, so that both parties involved and their children and society at large can benefit. But now, due to the fact that we're living in a Luciferian society, both parties are set at odds. Both quote unquote genders are set at odds. And there's a concerted attempt or agenda that people try to disavow themselves of any gender identity. So they're promoting gender identity disorder. And it's going to be very clear in the clip that the woman has no idea what she's doing with her son. She just has no idea whatsoever. And Marshawn Lynch is going to use a lot of coded language that we're going to decipher. So anyway, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
Got a huge video we're about to show you. Marshawn Lynch, the NFL superstar, at a camp in Seattle, gets into a heated confrontation with the mother of an 11-year-old football player who was at the camp over a situation that went down on the field. What ensued was a conversation with Marshawn Lynch, essentially telling them, well, not even essentially, he told her, the quote is there a man here with you? I want to talk to a man. And the woman felt very offended by that. So let's tell the whole story, okay?
The reason why the woman felt very offended by what Marshawn said is not because what he said was not true, not accurate, or not pertinent. It's because she's frustrated, number one, that she wasn't born a man. Number two, that Marshawn is not looking at her as an equal, not only based on her gender, but on her football knowledge. Because it's very clear that she believes that she can tell Marshawn Lynch how to coach her son. So therefore, we have to infer that she believes that she has as much football knowledge as Marshawn Lynch.
A camp on July 28th in West Seattle High School for youth kids, right? He's got this organization called Lynch's First Family Football Camp.
Yes, a free football camp.
Sounds like a pretty cool cause, a free camp, teach the kids how to play football.
Yes. So,
and 99.9% of these kids are not going to make it to the NFL. So Marshawn Lynch is doing this out of the kindness of his own heart. Now, if you establish a football camp somewhere in Miami in the hood, you know that you have a very good chance to possibly have a 25% NFL conversion rate with those kids, because that's a hotbed of NFL talent. The Miami or South Florida area, or Los Angeles, parts of the West Coast per se, in the California area. In Seattle, I mean, let's be for real. There's not going to be that many kids coming out of Marshawn Lynch's free one-day football camp who are going to make it to the NFL. So he's doing this out of the kindness of his own heart.
Kids show up, a bunch of kids are at this camp. At one point there are some drills going on, and Marshawn decided to throw some of the kids out of the drill. It's unclear exactly why, but we do know that he used some explicit language, some curse words when he instructed these kids. These kids in particular were 11 years old.
Let me say this very quickly. Those of us who follow football or the NFL for a certain period of time, or who have researched the history of the sport of football, know that basically football is a war game. It's meant to be a mock-up or a microcosm of war. That's why it's set up in the way that it is, the paradigm that it's set up in, the pattern that it's created in, where you have warfare in the trenches. Then you have the flankers, i.e. the wide receivers. It's basically just meant to be a microcosm of war. They utilize war tactics. So the coaches are meant to symbolize sergeants and lieutenants, colonels, generals, etc. That's why they speak to the football players, i.e. the soldiers, in such a quote-unquote harsh way.
Told me, get the bleep out of the drill. Well, the mother of one of the kids heard that, was very upset, ran down to the field, pulled her kid out, who was, oh, by the way, the kid was already crying, pulled the kid out of the camp and let other staffers and Marshawn Lynch know how she felt. She was very upset. So when you're going to see our video here, it says Marshawn Lynch went into the stands to try and have a conversation with this woman, and she explains her side, he explains his side. Here's what went down.
Say that, maybe you should just let him know. You're all in here.
Is there a man here with you? Okay, so
You know Marshawn ain't coming back to the NFL. He winded just off running them steps. And when he said, is there a man there with you? That's coded language. That's loaded language. What he really meant is there an adult here that I can speak with? All right? As I tell you, brothers, for the most part, the woman is a child with breasts. There's no disrespect whatsoever. The woman has unbelievable, irreplaceable energy. She's integral to society. We all know that. But they operate on a childlike level when it comes to how to interpret certain situations because they lead with their emotions. It's not a shot. It's not an attempt to denigrate them. It's just the truth. And Marshawn Lynch understands that he has to speak to a man if he wants to converse with someone who grasps that there are actually repercussions to your actions. Very few women accept the understanding or the concept of there being repercussions to your actions, what you do and what you say. They don't like to be held accountable for what they do or what they say in general. Of course, does that mean every last woman? No, but for the most part, they do not like to be held accountable for things that they do or that they say. They believe that they should just skate. And when the time comes that they actually have to pay the penance for what they've done, they start to cry. That's why Marshawn Lynch said, is there a man that I can speak to? That's coded language for, is there an adult that I can converse with on this issue? Now look at that. Marshawn said, oh shit. And then the woman said, out here cussing at kids and shit. And this is a favorite of many of these quote unquote single mothers. They love to lambaste people for using quote unquote profanity when no one has a more quote unquote profane mouth and utilizes more quote unquote curse words than most of these so-called single mothers. They just want to be the only ones that have the authority to not only curse at their children, but curse at others. And they love to go on profanity-laced or quote-unquote profanity-laced tirades against grown men because they believe that they no longer can be held accountable for their actions in the form of a man physically attacking them. So whenever they see a man speak authoritatively, they go out of their way to try to shut that man down. Once again, even a man who's giving a free clinic for their child, when it's very clear that the man who inseminated you no longer wants to be involved with you because for the most part, your personality is so toxic and corrosive that even many of your children, by the time they get of age, are going to turn against you. And that's what's going on with many of these so-called single mothers, at least the ones who were toxic enough to be inseminated by a low-level man. Their children become resentful towards them as they get older. And I believe that her son is going to become resentful towards her. That's just my own observation eventually, because she seems to want to have a monopoly on his upbringing.
I'm cussing
actually
So look, I got some.
every one of them's
All right,
fine.
that's okay.
No, my son's a shit. It's not okay.
Is there a man here with you?
Is there an adult here with you?
There's not a man here with you?
What does that matter?
Okay, I'm
My son is leaving. I don't care. It's my son.
When this thing just spoke to me about my name, I will let you know. I told nobody to get the in the drill.
Get over here
I
right
told,
now.
look. But I will tell them,
Did you volunteer too? They all
but I will tell them, and if they're not doing what they need to do, then there's consequences to that.
Absolutely. Marshawn Lynch is letting the woman understand there are consequences to not following my instructions. This is a concept that is foreign in the households of many of these modern day females today because they do not adhere to the concept of consequences and repercussions. So therefore, neither do their children. That's why the incarceration rate is skyrocketing across the country. And there is an inextricable link between the rise of incarceration and the promotion of single motherhood, or the quote unquote empowerment of women, which is in and of itself just meant to harken back to the veneration of the mother goddess and her child. That's all this is about. All these females think that they're quote unquote divine, i.e. perfect, and they know what's best. But then why bring your son to a free camp? You should have just taught him football yourself at home. Marshawn said, you said shit. You say shit every day. In other words, why are you getting on me for quote unquote cussing at your son? It was nothing personal. I'm cussing at all the kids in line because that's football. And you're using that same language in your household every day. Once again, these women will curse somebody out at the drop of a hat for the main reason that they believe that a man is not going to mollywop them. But you see, a lot of these dudes are starting to do that. And I would not be an advocate of that. But if it happens, it happens. Proverbs 18:21 tells us that the power of life and death proceeded from the tongue. So the things that you say can get you hurt. It can get you killed. So we all have to be very careful with things like that unless we're willing to suffer the consequences. But it's just it's the height of hypocrisy when you see many of these modern day liberal / Luciferian women rambling on about who's cursing and who's using certain types of language. It's a big joke.
If it takes that amount of time for when I tell a kid to do something and they're not doing what they're supposed to do, then there is consequences, like push-ups, like running laps,
Like telling them
like,
to get away from your
like
drill.
telling them to get out of my drill if they're not participating, doing right, get out of my drill.
Marshawn, you're a better man than me. Because I would have said, yes, get the fuck out of my drill and you get the fuck out of my face. How you going to come to my camp that I set up for your kids and you're going to have the nerve to get upset by what I'm saying? That just shows that you have no understanding of football. If you take your child to go learn boxing in a real boxing gym, you're going to hear curse words. If you go to a football field or a basketball court, the coach is going to use curse words. The real issue is that the woman wants to have the ultimate authority over her child, and therefore by proxy or via proxy, she wants to have authority over the coach as well, because that's what she's accustomed to in her life, in her household, trying to dominate men, because she tried to dominate the person who inseminated her, and that failed. But they still have not learned from their failures. But once again, just to get back to the overall crux of the matter, when Marshawn Lynch stated, is there a man I can speak to? What he really meant was, is there an adult I can reason with? Because I cannot reason with the woman.
Get the out of my drill, or whatever it takes.
Or at least this woman.
Get my drill. It's no disrespect or anything, but there's a million kids. But I didn't want you to get away to go and throw dirt on my name.
No.
Yes, because you knew that that's what she was going to go do, and that's what she ended up trying to do. Even though he came and he basically supplicated himself to her in a very tactful way, and she claimed no, but she still went on to make a video trying to ramble on about Marshawn Lynch. So he knew what he was doing. Brothers, always cover your own ass, especially when it comes to these modern day women, particularly the modern day liberal woman, because no matter what they say, they're led by their emotions for the most part, and they are going to try to get some type of get back if they can. Thankfully, we're living in the age of surveillance, or who knows what she would have said about him. That's why so many men, especially so many black men, have been privy to false accusations from bitter women over the years, because there was no video or audio evidence to condemn their false statements. So once again, Marshawn showed a great deal of discernment and tact to say, let me cut this off at the pass and speak to this woman so that at the very least I can explain to her why I did what I did, how I did it.
But I understand that I'm not going to be able to please everybody, which I'm fine with that.
Right. And more than that, we should not be concerned with pleasing anybody. Forget pleasing everybody. Don't worry about pleasing anyone. As long as you do right by people, as long as you don't break the laws or infract upon the laws of the land, the laws of the Most High, that's all you can be concerned with.
Okay, I'm up here to do this, but I still got 200 more kids out there. But I appreciate it, though, sweetheart.
Okay, couple thoughts here. Number one, we spoke to one of the mothers involved in that situation. We're going to hear from her in a second. She feels that when Marshawn Lynch said, "Is there a man here? I want to speak to a man," that she felt that that was sexist and she was offended by that.
Well, that's based on the presumption that the quote-unquote sexes are equal, and they're not. And she knows that the sexes are not equal because if she truly believed that, she would be the one teaching her son about football. She can't do that.
Second thing is that the parents were upset that Marshawn Lynch was running a youth camp for kids as young as 9 years old.
Maybe her big ass needs to join a damn youth camp, lose a few pounds. That's probably why she's so upset. A lot of these women bug out because they're so out of shape and the foods that they eat cloud their mind and mess with their cognitive function. So they freak out, they spaz out over every little thing.
All the way up until I think there were some 18-year-olds that were there as well, that he was using curse words, explicit language. They felt that was inappropriate.
Here's what I'm trying to figure out. Anyone who knows Marshawn Lynch over the last 10 years, did you expect to go to his football camp and have him there at the 50-yard line speaking in the King's English? Like he was going to be there speaking like William Shakespeare or some shit? We already know what we're going to get from Marshawn.
He conducted himself, they felt was completely inappropriate for a kids' football camp, so they had a problem with that. There is an argument that that it's football camp, and I guess kids got to toughen up, and you kind of know what you get when you sign up for Marshawn Lynch's camp.
Yeah, I think it's really widely accepted though that you probably shouldn't curse at 9-year-old kids. I think that's too young for that type of language.
Widely accepted by who? In every type of youth sport that I ever participated in, basketball, football, hell, even playing freeze tag, there was profanity, not even from the adults, but from the kids.
I think that is, but I think, I mean, I can't make an argument that you should be cursing in front of 10 and 11-year-old kids, but I can make an argument that football coaches curse in front of 10 and 11-year-old kids all the time. Like they do.
I don't remember that young.
Because you were too busy sitting at the far end of the bench. You couldn't hear the curse words.
Definitely remember that young. And I've also seen kids coached recently, very recently, and also with this particular guy, this is how he talks.
Absolutely.
I've never, ever, you can put Marshawn Lynch in front of the president.
And I like what Marshawn Lynch did there. He put his face right into that person's camera to let them know, I want you to upload this. I want to get this out to the people. So you're not catching me unawares.
And you're going to need your bleep button.
Right.
And so that this is how he talks. So
There is an argument that if you sign your kid up for Marshawn Lynch's camp, that you know Marshawn Lynch. It's not like he's somebody who hasn't been out there and outspoken and everybody knows who he is. So if you're going to go to Marshawn Lynch's camp, I think you kind of know what you sign up for. But on the other hand, if you're a parent and you're dropping your 10, 11 kid-year-old off at a camp and you see that Marshawn Lynch made your kid cry, that would be upsetting too. I totally understand that.
Life is full of upsettings. You're going to go to certain jobs and not be treated well by your boss. You might get upset. You're going to be in relationships where you might not be treated particularly well by your significant other. You might get upset. You may walk down the street and someone may step on your foot and not apologize. You may get upset. You might get cut off in traffic. You may get upset. Life is about learning to deal with those moments. It's not about trying to avoid them or act as if they're never going to happen or never going to happen again. So better to learn young than learn older and not have the mental stability to deal with that, and then you end up dead or in prison.
I know that we've ever seen Marshawn Lynch interact with young kids before, so maybe maybe you think this is what he's like with adults, but you don't necessarily know that.
Once again, this is why it's very dangerous to give people free shit, because they start nitpicking the free shit that you gave them. That's why you never want to enable freeloaders, because it encourages them to embrace a mentality that's going to be deleterious to themselves. Maybe Marshawn might want to consider charging these people a fee in the future and saving his free camps for Oakland or where he comes from. because it's no disrespect, I have a hard time believing that had he had this free camp in Oakland, or to be quite frank with you, had this been around more so-called black people, that a black woman would have had as much of an issue as the woman in this video had.
Interact with kids before. We haven't seen him curse at kids. Marshawn Lynch actually is a pillar of his community as far as kids are concerned. Actually, what he's doing right there is for the kids. It's for free football.
Which is something that he does not have to do, by the way. And a lot of people do not grasp this. They think that when someone becomes a success or becomes rich, that that person owes their community. No, when you become affluent or successful or rich, you owe it to yourself to do good things for good people, because that creates good energy for you in the future. But I always laugh when you see these people, they run around the internet talking about what a rich athlete has not done for the hood. That's exactly why there's a hood, because you're waiting for somebody else to do something for you.
Great call.
And so like when you look at him, he puts on fairs and carnivals for kids in his community. So he's very, very giving as far as what he does for them.
I also felt like, I'll say this for Marshawn, I also felt like he was doing the best he could to actually try to explain where he was coming from.
Of course he was, because he knew what she was going to do. Marshawn seems to understand the mind of the woman very well, because immediately he asked her if there was a man that he could speak to. Because essentially and intrinsically he knows that within the woman, she wants to go back and forth, and things can spiral out of control very quickly when you go back and forth, not just with a liberal woman, but with a male that has the mind of a liberal woman, i.e. a simp.
But where he screwed up, though, is when he said, I want to talk to a man. Because to me...
No, that's not where he screwed up. That's where he got it right. You wouldn't understand that because you're a simp.
Watch that. He's like, look, he was this woman is the parent who's representing her kid. Right. And it doesn't matter if she's a man or a woman.
No, actually, it does matter. Everything in life matters. Everything.
He's expressed a problem to you, Marshawn Lynch. This is your camp.
Right.
You deal with me. Let's talk this out like two adults.
And as we can see, no disrespect to any of these females involved, but both of them happen to be non-black women. And I do not believe that Marshawn would have ran into this issue had it been a couple of so-called black women. I just don't. We know that the liberal black woman has entitlement issues out the wazoo. But normally, if they're getting something free from an athlete of influence and affluence, they're going to respect his coaching techniques. That's just another dynamic that I see. There's very little doubt in my mind that part of the reason why these two females here were so upset is because who is this guy to talk to our children like that? And most likely, this is something that Marshawn is going to have to consider in the future. He might have to create some more conventions at his camps or his fairs or his quote-unquote carnivals, as Van Lathan puts it, to make sure that there are more steps in between him and the parents, because he might end up getting sued one day by someone who has an entitlement issue, no matter what their so-called nationality or race is. But that's always a component. That's always going to be a component. When our people, so-called black people, see that someone is reaching out and trying to lend a helping hand to their community, we're going to have far more leeway than someone of another race, because just by nature, they're going to look at Marshawn as someone who's lucky to be where he's at, as opposed to someone who has worked hard to get to where he's at.
A man here for that.
Well, I mean, things got a little fiery on the field from what you said.
Right.
So there's a part of me that thinks perhaps Marshawn Lynch didn't want to be, knowing the way that things can be perceived, didn't want to be in what could be an aggressive situation with a woman. So maybe he felt more comfortable.
But this is reality, though, right? Even if he feels more comfortable, like, this is the reality of it.
The reality is,
no, that's not the reality of it. And once again, because you're a simp, you don't grasp that. The woman in general does not deal with reality. She deals with her own delusions. And I'll be covering this concept more in other videos. In general, are there exceptions to the rule? Sure. But one of the main reasons why people have quote unquote relationship issues is because the delusional nature of the woman is encouraged through many of these childhood films, the Disney films. What they do is they instill and install princess programming, which makes the woman believe that no matter what she does, everything is supposed to go her way. That's why Snow White and Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty and all these films, they always end with a prince sweeping her off her feet, no matter what she's done or what she plans to do. And these females today, these liberal females, they watch these movies as children, And it gets embedded in their subconscious mind, and it plays out over the course of their interactions with people, both male and female, throughout their life. And that's why you guys get into these relationships with these women, and you don't understand why she starts riffing for no reason. Oh, she was acting nice at first, and now she's acting like this. It's because of her princess programming. And that is the reason why Marshawn Lynch wanted to speak to a man, because men tend to deal with reality. When you see people like this clown at the top left who's acting as if he's upset about why Marshawn Lynch wanted to speak to a man, it's because he has the mindset of a woman. And in his relationship, his woman is dominating him. A simp cannot teach anything to anyone. They're a vassal.
The reality is also, if he would have gotten in a screaming match with that woman right there, how the video would have looked then.
Absolutely.
By the way, props to him for maintaining, keeping his composure and all that stuff. And really, I mean that. I'm not saying that sarcastically.
No, props to him for running up those stairs and even attempting to converse with her. Because once again, it's a free camp. He could have told her where she could go.
You're confronted with somebody who's angry, and your instinct is you want to get angry back, and you try to compose yourself and have a civil conversation. Good for you, but I really think he's got to realize that, like, this is the parent of a kid at your camp, and you're acting.
Yes, that's a parent of a kid at his camp that he's giving away free access to his knowledge, which is probably worth in the tens or hundreds of thousands. That's what that parent is. Someone who has very little to offer her son. Even she understands that at this point. And there's very little that the woman can teach her child after the age of 3 or 4. They know that in this society. That's why the school system starts at 3 or 4. Once again, that is why Marshawn was asking to speak to a man. If you have such a lack of clarity of your situation that you're going to try to argue with someone who's giving you something for free, what else is going wrong in your life?
Professional capacity, and you have to address that person the same whether they are a man or a woman. It doesn't matter.
More. I think that when you, like, when I couldn't agree with you more, sincerely. When I watched the video, I see Marshawn Lynch doing his best, perhaps inartfully, to diffuse the situation.
No, there was nothing inartful about his tactics or his ways of speaking to her. He was just approaching it in a realistic manner. And that's why there's so much antipathy between the two genders, because once again, both genders are being taught that there's no difference between men and women, and there's nothing further from the truth. Even in the ancient culture, they would mythologize the nature of the man to Saturn and the nature of the woman to the moon or to the earth. Why is that? Because Saturn represents Adam, and the earth or the moon represents Eve, or Venus representing Eve or Semiramis. The nature of the woman is passionate, it's emotional. The nature of the man, when he's in his right mind, is filled with logic, reason, and rationale. So that's why you want to speak to a man in order to solve problems. It's very difficult to resolve issues or solve problems speaking to an emotional woman.
To explain to a parent why the way he does things the way he does it, that he really meant no real harm.
He could have done that, because the back half of the video, when he is explaining where he's coming from, I got that. I understood what he was trying to say.
Of course, because you have the mind of a woman. So even the woman in the video calmed down. That's why you calmed down.
I don't think they needed to qualify it by asking for a man first. If he would have just cut right to that part, I think we wouldn't have even had the problems that we're having right now with this video.
No, actually, there would have been no problems if the woman understood that she was receiving a free benefit from a stranger who owes her nor her son anything at all.
Meanwhile, though, we got to say, we did speak to the woman involved in the argument with Marshawn Lynch. Her name is Stephanie Siva. We spoke with her. Here's what she told us. This is her side of the story.
What is your interpretation of that question when he's asking you that?
He's asking me to be sexist, like basically, you know.
No, he was asking you if there was a man there. And anyone could look at her and see that she's another one of these super liberal women who gets around in Seattle. Most of those bras up there, they lay down with every damn thing.
Only a man will make sense of that. Only a man would understand him telling a kid to get out of a drill.
Well, now you know where you stand. Next year, you can start your own football camp for your son. Problem solved.
He preferred, like she said, to talk to a man, apparently. But yeah, I couldn't believe it was very sexist. And it was like, what, you can't conversate with a mom? I mean, you can't even have like a conversation with him without him like legit getting really mad. And
Now, as we could see from the video, Marshawn did not get really mad. You see that? That's why it's so important to have video evidence, because the woman interprets things through the prism of emotion at all times. Everything with them is happy, mad, sad, things of that nature. There's very little nuance with the vast majority of these females because of just how their brain works and also how they're programmed. That's why I stated that it was very important that Marshawn did what he did, which was confront the woman in a calm way. But look at how she's describing it. He was an angry black guy. That's basically what she's implying.
It's like, if he's going to be that way around children, maybe he shouldn't be around children.
See,
Or maybe you just shouldn't bring your child to his camp, his free camp. And maybe that could be a bonding experience for you and your son. You can both work out together because it's very clear that you need it.
my problem with what she said, and I can't tell her whether or not it was sexist, if she felt like it's sexist was. She said you can't have a conversation with him without him getting really mad. We just watched her have a conversation with him, and he didn't get really mad.
Right, we've seen him mad. That was not him mad.
That wasn't him mad at all. Now, if she felt like it was sexist, then it was.
Right.
That's the end.
No, if she feels like it was sexist, then she has her right to feel that way. It does not make it what the case is.
Like, she's sitting right there. She didn't appreciate it. She is the lady in the situation. I'm not going to argue.
That term lady is thrown around way too much. The vast majority of these creatures in Western society are females. They have to earn the right to be considered a woman or a lady. In the same way that people are quick to say, you know, just because you impregnate a woman doesn't make you a father, or just because you have a penis doesn't make you a man. We have to start utilizing that same reasoning or those same types of categorizations with the woman as well, or with the female.
I think this is kind of one of those situations where maybe Marshawn's gruff demeanor, it didn't serve him well.
His gruff demeanor. So he should have raised his voice up a couple of octaves and he feminized himself to come off as less threatening.
Either on the field or talking to the moms, to be honest.
Here's what I hope happens, and I mean this sincerely. I want Marshawn Lynch to reach out to this woman. I want this woman to be open to have a conversation with Marshawn Lynch, and I think the two of them need to talk things out. I think they both could learn a lot from each other.
They've already spoken things out. It's very simple shit. You go your way, I go mine. I'm giving you something free, and you think I'm supposed to call you back and apologize to you?
That you know, Marshawn Lynch is going to continue to operate these camps. I think that he should listen to what she has to say and learn from that. Do you think that is though?
Or maybe she can pay close attention to football camps and she can create her own. Maybe it'll be a success. Never in life, but maybe it will be. It'll be a success on February 1st.
Why? This is why football camp is best done, where all the coaches and the players go to some little town where nobody's around, where there's no, you know what I'm saying? When we used to have this football camp, we used to go to Thibodeau, Louisiana, wasn't nobody there. If I only told you some of the things that were on in 2 weeks before high school football, they would lock these coaches up.
Yeah.
So, but if the moms are there, they are not. If the dads are there, a lot of times they are not gonna like what they see on the football field, man.
Once again, football is meant to be a microcosm of warfare. So that's why they train football players like they're soldiers. If you can't deal with that, then you can't play football. It's very simple shit.
Amount of time for when I tell a kid to do something and they're not doing what they're supposed to do, then there is consequences.
And that's life. When you don't do what you're supposed to do, there are consequences. So hopefully Marshawn Lynch learned from this situation, that being that he has to use far more scruples when it comes to the free shit that he's giving people, because people do not respect free shit. So peace.